I'm a communication expert who accelerates leaders and their teams using my 3E system. Here's what I know about communication. You can only become what you can articulate, what you can define. And I have a very strong sense of identity in what I'm doing in education. I'm an all-in kind of person. I can't go and support someone and just give them some definitions and then walk away. I feel a pull to really get into the work with them.
Welcome back to Freedom to Shift. I am Dr. Mo, and I have the privilege today of talking to Cindy Piña, we've known each other for the last couple of years. We've been friends. We've been in masterminds together. And today is perfect because recently she's gotten some clarity on what her expert statement is. And the group that we actually started in together, I got hung up there for 867 days, give or take, on my expert statement because I couldn't figure out exactly what my expert statement was. How do I help people? And the funny thing is I had been doing it all along, and I'm guessing the same sort of thing happened with you, Cindy, that I had been doing it all along. I just didn't know how to put it into words. So my question for you is, what was your most recent freedom to shift? Because I know you'd worked with a consultant. So tell me that story and what was the, holy crap, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I have been in education for 25, 26 years, something like that. I was a classroom teacher for 17, and then spent the last 7 of those as a department coordinator for a group of like 23 teachers. So I think if you would have asked me then, even when I went into educational consulting, what my expertise was, I could very clearly define that for you. I'm an engagement expert. I'm an RLA expert, meaning like an English teacher, right? That teaches reading and writing and critical thinking. So from an education sphere, I could easily tell you that. But as I'm transitioning into working with corporate and business leaders, the language now didn't feel right. And so in thinking about more deeply the work that I do and the work that I've been doing in education, it really comes back around to communication. But I think sometimes when we're transitioning into new spaces, there are some things that kind of bring you back to start, right? And in coming back to start, sometimes we need, we can't go it alone, right? Sometimes we need the assistance of someone who has made those transitions before us. And I did. I found some guidance and you know her in Laura. Laura J is what she's going by now. But I found that guidance in Laura J. And she was able to, I think the difference here with Laura was that her form of coaching, she really takes on your views and your goals and your mission as if they were her own. She approaches it with that kind of excitement and buy-in and presence. And because of that, she was able to hear me and help put a mirror to what I was doing. And I really think that was the difference. It was I won't say the first time, but it was the first experience that I've had where somebody not only was able to be with me and take like shared ownership in that, but then have enough experience to be able to very quickly help me transition into a new vision, right? Or way of communicating.
So that's super interesting that you say that, because I think the right coach, we all have the right coach at the right time, I think, because at the beginning of our journey, to be honest, we don't know what the hell we're doing. Let's be serious. I still kind of don't. So, that's the beauty of entrepreneurship that, oh, look what problems I'm solving today. Didn't see that coming. And we just keep kind of solving those and moving. And it's awesome that her words and her enthusiasm and exuberance came through for you. We've all got a bunch of coaches for different things. My business coach, my entrepreneurial coach that is who's really, I listen to the most, always says, borrow my confidence until you have it. And that to me is a good coach, because in the beginning, you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you're doing. You're like, am I doing this right? Who cares? You just do it, right? That's kind of where I sit. But for her to take that and then show you, oh no, this is what you're trying to say from the lens. Here's kind of the kicker. From the lens of someone who is farther along the road than you are.
Mm-hmm.
Because think about this. If you had, I lament this, right? Best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. If I had me 2 years ago in this physician space, what I do, I would be light years ahead of where I am right now. I'm like, but I didn't. So that's why we do what we do. So tell me now, after talking to Laura and kind of going through that, where is your education? What was your shift from education to, no, this is about communication. This is about people.
Yeah. So to be honest with you, I've been kind of spiraling in, I have some outlines for even TEDx talks, right, or an application. And the thing that I want to talk about, the thing that I've been doing in education for years does revolve around engagement, but I can also house that same conversation through the lens of communication. And so I actually have two versions of that outline, one for engagement, one for communication. But what I needed, I think, was someone to be able to put a mirror up to the spiraling that I was doing within the language to help me really get confidence to move forward, in deciding which way is really the most effective way to communicate what it is that I do. So the irony in all this, right, is you hear me saying I'm a communication expert, and here I am telling you that I needed a coach to help me clarify the language and the messaging, right? But here's what I know about communication. You can only become what you can articulate, what you can define. And I have a very strong sense of identity in what I'm doing in education. And the reason I'm moving into corporate is because there's been an evolution in realizing that the framework that I'm using to get buy-in from kids, whether they're in second grade or in high school. I mean, I don't know if you've ever talked to teenagers, but if you can get them to buy in to school and to not just be doing something out of compliance, but to actually buy into that, that's a good day. And I'm able to rinse and repeat that. So in the education world, I understand and know the mechanism. I've been doing that for years. The applicative things of what I'm doing that definitely apply in a corporate setting, well, that's a different audience. And so now, how do I take my experience and where I've been and what I'm transitioning to and be able to translate that now to a new audience? And so that gap right there is where I needed really to lean on people who have come before me to clarify that messaging, because I can only become what I can define.
I love that statement. I can only become what I can define. And, I had a similar experience kind of in December. I was told 3 years ago, I had coached physicians. I started about 5 years ago, and I was told about 3 years ago almost now that, you can't do that. They're not going to listen to you. And I believed that. And it was the right thing at the time, but I am a physician coach. It's what I've always been. It's what I've always tried to do in my job. And you see that like when you're in the schools and when you're inside of it, this is what you do. You're not talking to those teenagers. You're changing the system, or you're trying to change the system. And all I'm hearing is, yeah, those corporate people, we're pretty much teenagers. Every adult out there is a petulant teenager in their brain saying, no, you need a little guidance.
That is not what I was saying, but that's kind of funny.
That's what I'm hearing is we are all, I definitely am. I say this all the time. Inside is my 17-year-old, and I finally found her again because she gets shit done, which is awesome. But she was 17, know-it-all. Those of you who are listening that are related to me, I know you know. And that's still there a little. But it has to be, right? Because, even my coach says you have to have 300%. It's 100% clarity, 100% belief, 100% of the time in what you're doing. And that, it sounds like this new coach that you've got, this new consultant, allowed you to get that clarity. And that's key, because now that you know, and it's crystal clear, and once you see it, you're like, oh, what the hell was I doing? And it's very refreshing, because now you can just express yourself. And now you're like, yeah, so this is what I am. This is what I'm doing.
And coming back to expert statements, I understand the definition of how to write one. That intellectually, I get that. But sometimes I think, and I can only speak for myself at that time, I was too far in the weeds of the pivot, right? To really be able to sit firmly on language that allowed me the confidence to not look back anymore, to not keep spiraling, to not keep questioning. It's too wordy. Do I want engagement or communication? Is this, that it's a sentence, maybe two. And yet many of us, struggle
Get stuck for
years there, right? And so I understood that intellectually, the definition of that. But really, again, and you're right, when the student is ready, the teacher will come. And I think I've been in this space for a little bit, certainly investing in myself, investing in the work that I'm doing and the work that I'm transitioning into. I know my expertise. I know that will translate. But with that pivot, new language needs to come. And in order to get there, though, I got to get out of my own way. There's so much packed into, right, the things that we do. And I would argue that all of that is also packed into the barriers around communication as well, right? But that's for that discussion's for another day. And so, yeah, in this instance, I'm just super grateful, because I feel like I collaborated with the right person at the right time, because I was ready and she was all in. And I think those two things are essential, to walk out with that kind of confidence and, sense of movement, if you will.
I agree. I agree. Getting that traction that, wow, no, this is what I've been like, it's that piece, right? So we talk about, so for those of you listening who aren't familiar in these circles that we roll around in here, an expert statement is who you help, how you help them. I love this. By the way, I always like take the lid off and expose all the coaching crap we do because like, let's be serious, guys. What we do really is we come here with our experience and our strength and what we've learned and our mistakes and our victories. We show you how to do it, or we show you how we did it. If it resonates, we're like, hey, we can help you do it. It's kind of pretty simple. But an expert statement is supposed to be in certain circles, in a lot of circles. I mean, I've had like 4 coaches try to tell me how to do my expert statement, which is fantastic. And then I got tired of them all. So you're going to laugh about this because I recently just changed mine as well. Because we're like, no, you have to promise people a certain amount of this or a certain amount of this or really grab them with it. And I said, I just got to sit with something that feels like me. We're going to sit with this for a while. Because what I do is I help physicians create lives they love without sacrificing income. Like, and it was so simple. And it doesn't, because I had a $10,000 in that because I can get people to their first 10K monthly recurring revenue pretty easily. But it just, whatever. But the whole point is, no, you don't have to sacrifice income when you have your value and you know your value. And that's what it sounds like this coach did for you, which I think is the most important thing any coach can do. It's not about money. It is about speed because they can remove all those roadblocks and all those valleys and make them shorter. But it sounds like that's what she did for you is she compressed time and said, no, this is where you're going. And you're like, oh yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. And so the interesting thing, right, is when we talk about expert statements, I think it's clearly communicating to a potential client who could benefit from your experience exactly what it is that you can support them with, right? But equally as important, it's clarity for you. It's clarity for me, right? That allows, I think it accelerates the work and all the things, all the ways in which we can support the people that we come in contact with, because it gives us a very clear path forward. And I can tell you that prior to that, when I was talking to Laura most recently, I was talking about all the mechanisms at play in what I do. Couldn't tell her in a corporate setting, in an elevator pitch, if you will, or in a one sentence. So what is all of this, right? Well, it's about communication, but it's about communication with this, and off I went into the explanation of the nuts and bolts of the service I provide and the support. And so again, I didn't have that. I didn't have that sentence, right? I didn't have the expert statement readily available. And so the crazy part is that I know I have experience. I know that I've worked with people. I can show you 12 to 18% growth in student achievement. I know that translates into a corporate setting. However, without that clarity, I'm never going to be able to get to the place where I can truly support someone until that messaging is clear for me and for them. Once we have that, all of a sudden it's like the floodgates opened. Everything now, it's like, oh, I don't need this outline for the TEDx. It's this outline. And now that I know that for sure, I can stop spinning my wheels. And now I have to add this. Like everything just started creating traction, as you said, which is great.
Well, it's like guardrails, like all of a sudden, and you want to do for other people what she did for you, because that was so groundbreaking for you that you want to talk to people and say, no, let's do this. Let's set up some guardrails so you know exactly where you're going. And every time you start to step off onto the curb, I'm going to grab you. We're going to pull you back because you know exactly where you're headed. And that direction may change, right? Like when you get a little farther down the road. But for us it's creating a movement. It's passing that along. It's giving to others. We can't keep it. I always say this. You can't keep it unless you give it away. So when we get that expertise and it's given to us, I tell people I like for them to, if I tell people something, like for example, my patients, because I also run a practice and I coach in that practice, that for my patients, like if I tell you something, you can use that information. Obviously don't say you're a doctor when you do it, but I'm not a doctor when I'm coaching. I'm a coach when I'm coaching. Take my information, pass it along, make other people's lives better. I am totally good with that. Once in a while, it's like most of my stuff comes from Dan Martell. I like the way he teaches. It resonates with me. It is so clear. I have that book there, not because I want to say, oh, Dan Martell's all that in a bag of chips. No, it's to remind me this is a principle I live by. And that's the guardrail. It's like my guardrails are actually, I just had a mental picture. It's like my guardrails are these books lined up, like these I bounce between like, oh, don't stay in here. It's like Atomic Habits by James Clear. That's, again, it's people that tell me, no, this is a framework. This is what we're doing.
Well, and I can tell you what was really great is I feel like that's what I strive for in the work that I do. I'm an all-in kind of person. I can't go and support someone and just kind of give them some definitions and some explanations and then walk away. I automatically feel a pull to really get into the work with them, to be able to offer support. And I also feel that's what's contributed to the growth. When I tell you that that 12 to 18% growth that I see time and time again, that's a result of being all in with the people that I work with. So to be able, and I, that's, I think, sometimes rare to find. I think people are out there who provide support and services in that way, but you really got to search for them. So it was just, I'm just so grateful that I found that reciprocated in Laura, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good coach. I mean, and the thing is, she might not be the best coach for me. I don't know. I mean, I love her to death. I've never, but I haven't coached with her. And some people do not resonate with Dan Martell. Like it just does. It's a different wavelength, but that's just it. And I always tell people, I might not be your cup of tea. I want to know that before I take your money, God forbid. But that's why I dig in and talk to people. We talk about things because I need to know how your brain works to figure out if this is actually going to thunk in or we're going to like not do well. Because I've had clients in the past where a couple things, they just weren't ready to change. And that's okay. I don't mind. But it's not my job to convince someone they're ready. It's my job when you're ready, I got you. We got this. And we have this. It's a coach who's invested. And I mean, that's what I'm hearing from you. That's who you are. That's who she is. And that's the overarching theme that we're going to carry forward is that, no, you find a coach that resonates. And guess what? The same coach might not resonate 3 years down the road because you're going to change. They might change. We don't know. Or you may be in a mastermind where you're like, I think I'm done with this. I've gotten what I need from this. Let's move on to this next thing.
Yeah, I think you make a great point in that, it's not a one size fits all. So we resonate with different people at different times, and I think that's important to know because if forever, whoever's listening to us, right, if somebody after this podcast is inspired to go find themselves a coach, they need to allow grace, I think, for those experiences as well, because the first coach you encounter may not be the right fit. But that doesn't mean that they're all not going to be the right fit. And that doesn't mean that that coach isn't a right fit for someone else. So it's really just a matter of finding who you resonate with. And also, as we said from the beginning, had I collaborated with Laura 2 years ago, I don't know that I would have been, I don't know that we would have had the same outcome because I was in a different place 2 years ago than where I am by the time that I did collaborate with her. So a lot of it also has to do with my evolution as well. And
100%.
No.
Yeah, I mean, we're so different. I mean, I think we met maybe 2 years ago.
Yes.
I'm like somewhere in my brain. Like I think about 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, I was not this person. Like I wasn't. I know the day that the clarity really showed up and it was December 2nd, 2024, which is funny because I remember my dates. It's like, so we met through the Purpose Company and I hired them or I collaborated with them, invested in them July 4th, 2022. I can tell you those dates because I told myself I'm never hiring another coach. I have spent so much money and I have zero ROI. I'm never hiring another coach. I'm like Dory. Oh, look, a coach. No. And I spent about a year coachless. I said, I'll read books. I'm going to do this myself. And I had such amazing progress after going all in with Purpose Company.
Yeah.
And they were exactly what I needed when I needed them. But I'm a very different person now. And just the way I've built things out, I need more service-based. Like the mindset part, I don't need as much. Now I need more service-based. And people might be thinking, listening, what does that mean? I've actually just invested in 2 software platforms that help my business that happen to come with coaching. So that's a very different place than I was 2 years ago. And because I needed the mindset, I needed walls torn down at that point. But now I'm like, no, these are the services I need to help my business grow. Oh, wait, you mean you can help me through this and coach me too? That's my sweet spot.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up the Purpose Company as well, because I'm also grateful to have been a part of that that group. It's where I met you, it's where I met Laura. And I do feel like, man, it was like taking information through a water hose. I certainly learned a lot about the moves that I need to make and, all of those things. And so it's been a journey, but it's one that I'm super grateful for.
Yep. They were a huge springboard for me in nailing down. I think their new purpose assessment is really good. It's so funny because I tell Dan Martell all the time, you should have written this book 2 years ago before I screwed up all my hiring with his Buy Back Your Time book. It's like with the purpose company, I wish they would have had this assessment 2 years ago. But again, we lived with them through the development of the assessment. So we know we got that information from them, which is so valuable. But again, when the student is ready, and I wasn't ready then. I didn't have the kind of clarity I have now. Now I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing. And
Well,
that feeling is so good.
yeah, and the crazy thing is, I know when we started talking, I was telling you, I know what my identity is in education, and my expert statement there, right? I'm an engagement expert who unlocks the potential of teachers and students in classrooms. And however, what's interesting is the expert statement that I'm transitioning into, to be able to show business and corporate leaders the applicative, impact of the work that I've been doing. It now translates to I'm a communication expert who accelerates leaders and their teams using my 3E system. It is it is the same work, and if anything, that statement translates to both education and business leaders, because those that my 3E system is the system that is creating 12 to 18% growth repeated, like rinse and repeat. And it's also the system that I'm saying is applicable outside of education and in, the private and public sphere as well. So it's just interesting to see how the evolution of things actually can take us further than where we even thought from the beginning.
100%. And it's funny when you say that you had this, I guess, like you knew who you were in education, but it actually wasn't who you were in education. It was who you were in the world.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, no shit. You're like, okay, I get it now. Now I get it. And it's just funny, but you can't see until you can see. And then you can't unsee and you're kind of stuck, right? And you're like, oh great, I'm in a boat and we're going down the river and thank God Laura's got a motor.
Well, I just keep cracking myself up because I'm just thinking, in terms of teaching, I was an English teacher for 17 years. I taught rhetoric and composition to 11th graders, among other things. I ran the literary magazine with kids and, all kinds of things. But rhetoric and communication, or rhetoric and discourse, like it's all about communication. It's always been right in front of me.
Yeah.
But again, it's different. We're shifting into a different space from going from teacher to department coordinator to educational specialist or consultant to executive coaching and leadership. Each of those come with a pivot. And so with that, you're almost having to step out to really think about messaging with each transition. And so I don't know. Right now, I find I'm full of gratitude, and I keep chuckling at, again, the irony of all of that in the space where I live in particular.
Yes. If there's one thing I can tell anyone out there who's like, I'm afraid to be an entrepreneur, yeah, rightly so. Like it's the most accelerated personal development plan ever because you get people that are beyond you holding up a mirror, showing you, and you're like, oh, that's what I look like? Great.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because you bring up entrepreneurship, and I think in thinking about entrepreneurship, I think a big part of that is one, to be a successful entrepreneur, you really have to know your expertise and what you can bring to the table. That's not something you can make up. You have to have experienced whatever it is you now want to turn over and give to the world, right? And the other part of this is you really, to be successful, have to be willing to take a hard look at yourself and be honest about, and reflective in your practice, in your progress, in your mindset, in your work ethic, and I think if you're willing to do those things, if you're really willing to be honest and do some hard self-reflection, and you're also willing to take a good look at what it is you can bring to the table and be able to work on that. Let that be if you're in a service industry, what you can provide to people and live in authenticity in that space, then your chances of success are a lot higher, than if those things are missing, for sure.
I agree. And one of my principles has always been in personal development and my coaching is the inside out principle. First learned it from Michael Neal, but it's the, as within, so without. It's not new that if you don't have it, you can't give it. And if you don't give it, you can't keep it. So where do people find you, Cindy? If they're like, no, I need to work with this girl. How do I do it?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn and you can feel free to DM me there. I'm listed as Cindy Piña, Cyndi. I flipped the Y and the I there. And Piña is not Peña. It's not, people kind of always want to mix it up. I just tell people to remember that it's like Piña Colada, right? It's with an I. So, but yeah, people can find me on LinkedIn and DM me there if they're interested in working with me or maybe just finding out more about what it is that I do.
And everybody needs better communication. So go find Cindy on LinkedIn. Remember with a Y first. Remember your why. Cindy says, remember your why first. Your why is first. And thank you so much. And thank you to the listeners so much for listening. And we will see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.